Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, one of my subscribers, Ophir, sent me a tweet from Cenk Uygur, and this tweet annoyed me a little bit more than it should have annoyed me. And when I tried to figure out why it annoyed me, I think I got to the root of it, but I want to talk about the root of it. So, let's see. If Donald Trump fires Mueller, people should go into the streets. It should be Tahrir Square-like uprising. We must defend our democracy and the rule of law. There should be a popular uprising like we've never seen before in America. Now, I imagine him flipping out when he's saying this because, I don't know why. I just imagine it. It sounds more epic when you're flipping out when you're saying it. We must defend our democracy and rule of law. There should be a popular uprising like we've never seen before in America. I couldn't understand why I was annoyed by this tweet. I couldn't understand why I was annoyed by the tweet. Ophir asked the question, why go out into the streets over this? Why now? What about the anti-war protests? I think I got to the root of it. I had to search my feelings for a moment. This is residual, at least for me. It's on two fronts. They cheated Bernie Sanders. And after they cheated Bernie Sanders, you co-signed the cheating by supporting Hillary Clinton and turning your network into supporting Hillary Clinton. Whatever the reasons that you wanted to give for that, if you're talking about something that's undermining democracy, cheating one of the candidates definitely constitutes undermining democracy. I mean, she rigged the system. It was clear as day. Anybody who's looking at the system looks at this and says, oh my God, they're cheating this guy. They're cheating the guy. The only apparatus that we have in this country, or let me say it this way, you have two choices in this country. You can comply or you can revolt. Meaning you either play the game of the political apparatus itself, or you do something different. Something different is going to go contrary to the political apparatus. Just by definition, you've revolted at that point. What you're asking is for people to throw their bodies into the streets. My point here is that they undermine the democratic process. The only process you have in this country outside of that option to revolt and to go against the entire political establishment, essentially a civil war of sorts, the only apparatus you have is your political apparatus. People run in the primaries, run through these political processes, allowing the American public to choose the people who they want to accede into the various offices. That's all you have. Anything else is essentially a revolt. The reason I'm making this point, and I'm trying to make this point plain, is that each handover of government is a toppling of one power into another power. It's a peaceful process, but it is what it is ultimately that is what's taking place. One power structure is being abandoned for another power structure. Now, in our country, we have a workable point of view on both sides of this. I mean, Democrats and Republicans, for the most part, agree on reality the way it is, and both of these parties are bribed, and both of these parties serve corporate interests or monetary interests. Now, what I'm getting at here is, if this is the only apparatus you have to make the determination on who you want to exceed that office, and one party makes the choice purely on their own to game the system, we have a person who we want, it is her turn, and we're going to put that person in that office, fuck all to public opinion. You don't know what you want. Just like the woman who was arguing for superdelegates, arguing for a rigged process, explaining that people, the unwashed masses, don't always know what the unwashed masses want. And sometimes the unwashed masses can be conned into supporting somebody who's not in their best interest. What she's trying to say is, we have a workable point of view of the world, and we want to make sure that that workable point of view exceeds to office from one, or there's a continuity of that workable point of view. We need to keep the process rigged, otherwise we can't maintain that workable point of view. They cheated the guy. The political process, the only political process you have of the public determining who it wants to go into office, was subverted by the Democratic Party. Your argument of, we must defend our democracy. You turned around and supported the person who undermined that democracy. They literally cheated a fucking candidate, the person who you yourself was going for, and you turned around and supported that candidate. Whether you want to call it fear, whether you want to call it being terrified, the time to defend your democracy, the time to make this pitch of throw your bodies into the streets, throw your bodies into the streets. The time for you to make that pitch was then, while they were stealing democracy, not turning around your network saying, support Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump is going to eat your babies. You went with 100 loser Donald segments. And the argument that you're making here is that there is some link between Trump and Russia. You've presented no link. You've screamed about this for a year. You screamed about this for a year. You and the other television networks. You've taken the FBI, NSA as the word of God. I don't know at which point the TYT becomes stenographers for the CIA, FBI, and NSA. And even then, not dealing with the competing evidence that this stuff was a leak and not a hack. Evidence was put out. Investigative evidence was put out showing that the speeds that these things have taken place were more synonymous with a leak, not a hack. Somebody downloading information. You're not going to hear that. They have a workable point of view. They have a particular point of view now. They don't like Donald Trump. They were completely against Donald Trump when he ran in office. They have their own political apparatus now with the Justice Democrats. Democrats is in the last name of that particular thing. They have a point of view. They have a point of view. And they have a dog in the hunt at this point. Look, the thing that bothers me about this is that this is somewhat of a political thing, meaning all of this started with Hillary Clinton screaming Trump and Russia. There was no link. There was nothing established. Out of whole cloth, they spun this up. They lied, saying there were 17 intelligence services. There weren't 17 intelligence services. They consistently presented the stuff as if it was fact, even though there was no link established in the entire time. The fact that we're still having this conversation right now about goddamn Donald Trump and Russia is because there's no link. If there wasn't evidence, we wouldn't still be having this conversation right now. This particular thing has gone on and dragged itself on for a year. They have squat. This is, to some degree, a political witch hunt. And yet, it's the one that TYT has invested itself in and other networks have invested themselves in. If you find a link between Trump and Russia, it is not that I'm against you taking Trump out that office because of it. But right now, you have squat. And you're talking for people to have this mass uprising. People need to throw themselves into the streets. It's like, are you insane? Are you insane? The United States, a president went into a country and murdered 1 million people on what was a lie. And what was a lie? That president made the determination to torture human beings in order to try to create a link that didn't exist between Iraq and 9/11. We murdered 1 million people in that conflict. And I use the term murder because ultimately we went into something knowing full well that there was going to be consequences in the sense of loss of life for the actions that we were taking. Those people, many of those people fled into other countries. The root of ISIS can be linked to the 9/11 event or to us attacking Iraq and Afghanistan in the way that we did. We destroyed that area of the globe. He's out there finger painting right now. Throw your bodies into the streets. I don't remember that argument being made on this one. If there was any reason to throw your bodies into the streets, a president invading a country, murdering 1 million people, not to mention getting 4,000 Americans killed in the process, the flagrant, whether you believe 9/11 was an inside job or whether you believe that these guys were incompetent, either way, incompetence, even with the incompetence argument, that demands a certain level of accountability. These people are asleep at the wheel, and then to cover up the fact they were asleep at the wheel, invaded another country and murdered 1 million people. The next president comes in office, makes that okay by not doing anything about it. Folks, we tortured some folks. All of these things are against the law. The drone striking into other countries, 7 other wars that Obama expanded that stuff into. All of these things were extra constitutional. The president of the United States was functioning as a king. I don't remember people throwing their bodies into the streets over this stuff. Certainly, if you're talking about something like that, this would be one of those things to throw your bodies into the streets over. I mean, there's one thing after the next. There's so many things. What about the economic system? The way poverty is instantiated into the way our system operates. This stuff is in this thing, word of this is a law of God per se. This is the laws of man, the things that people do, and the way that the rich advantage themselves using the political system itself. People haven't thrown themselves into the streets over this stuff. All of these things are things people should be throwing themselves into the streets over. The idea that cops are murdering people in the streets, those are things people should be throwing themselves into the streets. There are plenty of things. There's a long list of things I believe people should be throwing into themselves in the streets over. And I am not against this kind of glorious revolution where workers rise up and say, we're sick of this, and those people become awake and they start taking back power. I'm okay with that. I love that idea. I don't know what happens on day 2, but at the very least on day 1, I'm all in. I'm all in. But I'm trying to get at the root of this thing of attacking democracy by firing Mueller. I don't care if he fires Mueller. I think it's bad politically. I think it's just as bad as him firing Comey. But let's be honest. Comey was in the camp for Hillary Clinton. Comey didn't even do a fucking investigation when Comey was saying he was doing an investigation. Comey was incompetent and he should have been fired. Either he was incompetent or he was a functionary of a particular political apparatus. And yeah, there was just cause to fire Comey. Now, your issue is him firing Mueller because you believe that there's a link between Trump and Russia and that Trump is trying to hide that particular link. Whatever. I don't think you have evidence for that, and the fact that you've been screaming about it for a year shows you have no evidence for it. I'm getting at the very specific point of this idea of revolution, and that this is the thing. Yes, this is your benchmark that you're using for this idea of revolution, and I'm saying that you guys are not being objective when you're looking at this at all. If you're looking for a revolution, the time to do it was when they were cheating Bernie Sanders. That's the time when you were trying to have this glorious revolution, and not to turn around and co-sign the cheating by supporting Hillary Clinton, turning your network into this functionary tool of the Democratic Party. I'll leave it at that. I think that's the thing that was bugging me about this, where it was like, you're talking about revolting over Donald Trump and this Mueller stuff, this investigation. This seems like a political contrived investigation, when they were actually doing the cheating, when they actually cheated your guy, when they actually subverted democracy, when they actually kicked Lady Liberty. I want to say kick Lady Liberty in the balls, but that wouldn't necessarily work. But you know what I mean. When they literally gut democracy, when they literally subverted the will of the American public, when they literally made a choice saying it is her turn, and you turn your network and still said, yes, it's her turn. We're fighting the establishment. But right now it's her turn. Right now it's her turn. That's all. That's all. That's the part that annoyed me. I hope this made sense. I hope I got this across. I felt like I was more annoyed than what I should have been at it, but the more I thought about it, it was, they cheated Sanders and they co-signed the cheating with Bernie Sanders. They co-signed the cheating with Bernie Sanders. That was my feeling of it. And in the same way that other organizations like the news, media, and all this other stuff are connected to the parties, yeah, they're fucking wing called Justice Democrats. It's like, yeah, of course, there's a tether to you in this case. I understand that the regular Democratic Party may not necessarily like you. Completely, anyway. But certainly, this is not just, you know, it's not just a news show giving its perspective. There is a political component to this particular thing. It's not these guys are just giving the news and just getting the news right. It's they have a political dog in the hunt. They have a political apparatus fused to their media establishment. It's like, how can you expect to get real news out of a situation as a political dog in the hunt? So I'll leave it at that. This has gone on too long and I'm rambling. So, all right, guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.